Huh?
We're live.
All right.
Oh, you know what? And we can start sharing from now.
Good morning.
Kathryn, good morning.
Hello.
That's awesome. You're back. Your internet is back, right?
It looks like I got my internet back just in time.
Awesome.
Oh, I was on all early and then it went out.
That always happens on the Daily Huddle. Everything just in time.
Very good.
It's a blessing to have you here. Welcome, Kathryn.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kathryn. We are excited to have you and talk about probably one of the number one fear for humanity.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yes.
Good morning, and Jerry. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Kathryn, if you go to the Daily Huddle page, you can start sharing on your page, the live.
Yes, I did share the event, and when you post the replay, I'll share that as well. And if you have it on LinkedIn, I'll share it on my LinkedIn.
Okay, and we're live now, so you can go to the Daily Huddle page and you can share it live as you go.
Oh, okay, great.
Kathryn, the best way to share it live, don't just share it, go to the option and start a watch party on your own profile. That way all your friends will see it and they'll come join your watch party.
Okay, so I need to go to your your Facebook page to get on there, and then
click share and say start watch party.
Start a watch party, Sorrel? You know, I've never done that.
Yeah, that alerts your friends immediately, and your friends come to your watch party.
Huh. This must be the wrong Daily Huddle. It says there's only 2 members. I don't think that's right.
I'm gonna tag you on it.
Okay.
Start a watch party, Sorrel? You know, I've never done that.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, yeah. And you have to mute it, like the little, not you mute yourself, but mute the video on Facebook and then share. Click share and say start watch.
Oh, I like this.
Oh, wow.
Do that too, Gio. I'm going to do that now. And for you and I, Gio, you have to do it as yourself, not as the Daily Huddle. If you do it as the Daily Huddle, it will go on the Daily Huddle page twice.
All right, I think I'm doing that now. How's the audio sound?
Good.
Sound awesome.
Great.
All right, Gio, it is 9 a.m.
All right, awesome.
Good morning, Gio and Sorrel.
Good morning, Lorna.
All right, Sorrel, so you'll do we'll do it my way or your way or our way?
Oh, no, your way is way better, buddy.
Fine, fine. Good morning. Good morning. All right. So here we go. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How are you guys doing this morning? My name is Giovanni Gonzalez, and I am really, really excited to be here every morning, getting to start our day, getting to empower ourselves. All right, so here we go. Good morning. Good morning. Good. I'm going to mute myself. How are you guys doing this morning? I don't know. There we go. Now I muted myself. Very good. So it is excited to be with you guys every morning. Today we have a phenomenal conversation that I can't wait to get us started. And again, I said my name is Giovanni Gonzalez, and this is the Daily Huddle, where we say that the way you start your day gives you the rest of your day, and the way that you live each day gives you the rest of your life. What day is today, Sorrel?
Gio, it's today.
And what time is it?
Let me see. Oh, it's now.
That's about the only times that matter, and the only day that matters at the end of the day. Great to be with you today, Sorrel. I always have the pleasure to introduce America's executive coach, Sorrel Kathryn. Good morning, Sorrel.
Good morning, Giovanni. Thank you so much. It's awesome to be with all of you. I want to welcome Dave Daggett. Dave, you're new to the Daily Huddle. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks.
And Giovanni, I want to acknowledge you as the #1 transformational leadership coach, someone whose life is given to and committed to making the kind of difference in the world that leaves leaders of companies not only empowered, but anchored in their own commitment to make a real difference in the lives of the people who work there and the communities they live in. My friend, thank you for carrying me along as your partner in that kind of a quest. So thank you for being my co-host. I have the pleasure this morning of introducing Kathryn Woods. Now, Kathryn's speaking on a subject that's near and dear to my heart. I spent years being a Toastmaster, and I am still afraid of getting in front of a group and to discover how to overcome that fear, given that everything happens in a conversation for human beings. Everything. I have to speak to make a request. I have to speak to get a proposal out. I have to speak to present my goods and services. And I have to speak to make an impression with you and connect with you so that you may buy from me or use my services. So Kathryn founded an organization named Confident Communications in 2016. She's a communication and speaking voice coach with over 20 years of experience as a speech and language pathologist. Kathryn is also, believe it or not, a recovering shy person. Now, I don't know if that's possible, but here you are, right?
Right.
Not only speaking to the studio audience of the Daily Huddle, but speaking to the world, because we're streaming live on Facebook and people are watching us from Africa, Haiti, you name it. So as a recovering shy person, Kathryn fuses those aspects of her background to serve speakers, executives, and business owners by training them how to use their voice to convey their confidence, charisma, and authority when they talk, so they can connect with their audience and ideal clients. Whether you have stage fright, and that's probably every single one of you in here, or love an audience, Kathryn can teach us today how to make one small shift at a time in how we speak in order to captivate your listeners, grow your business, and achieve your goals. Good morning, Kathryn. Save us, please.
Good morning, Sorrel. Good morning, Giovanni. Good morning, huddlers. It's so great to be here with you today. And I am a recovering shy person. I was so painfully shy as a child. I didn't even want to look at people that I didn't know really well, much less actually talk to them. So I was really my own first client. I was the odd kid that read self-help books to pull myself out of shyness one little bit at a time, just making one little shift, gradually moving outside my comfort zone. And one of the things I figured out when I became a speech pathologist is that one of the reasons that we get nervous when we speak is that our body needs a lot of oxygen, a lot of air when we talk. First of all, our body needs breath for life, whether we're speaking or not. And most of us don't breathe properly to support our body's oxygen needs, much less our voice when we speak. So we're meant to breathe from our diaphragm, which is a dome-shaped muscle that sits under our rib cage and our lungs. And when we breathe from our diaphragm, we're breathing the way our bodies were built to breathe, the way we're all born breathing, and the way we still breathe when we go to sleep every night, whether we realize it or not. But somewhere along the way, we sort of lose that optimal breathing pattern, and we start breathing more often from our upper chest to one degree or another. How many of you have looked and seen kind of breathing from up here? And guess what? The muscles in our upper chest and our collarbones were not meant to do the work of breathing. So when we do this, which is a default for most of us when we're awake, whether we're speaking or not, we're actually fatiguing ourselves. And we're putting ourselves into a state of mild physical anxiety all the time, which then transfers and it spirals into emotional anxiety and psychological anxiety, whether we're aware of it or not. And many of us are taught to suck in our gut. And now we do it, whether we even realize it or not. We walk around holding our stomach in. But you can't breathe properly while you're holding your gut in. Yet most of us get in front of people, and we do this even when we're not talking, by the way. We do this all day long because we've trained ourselves to do it so that it's now subconscious. We're holding in our gut, so we have to breathe from up here. And it creates this vicious spiral, this circle, where we don't get enough air for our body. So we're nervous, so we start breathing faster, because when you breathe shallow, you're not optimizing your lung function. So then we have to breathe faster, more often, to get the air that our body needs. When we breathe faster, our heart rate gets faster. When our heart rate gets faster, our brain gets distress signals from our body. We're nervous, we're not getting enough air here. So it speeds things up even more, and it really creates this vicious circle which perpetuates itself. Add to that any nerves, because as you mentioned, many people are quite afraid of public speaking. And even those of us who love it, I love it now, but I still get nerves when I speak. I was really nervous this morning when the internet kicked me off as we were about to start. And I had to put myself back in my breathing and back in my body. Because that's the other thing we do that keeps us from being comfortable when we speak and gets us flustered. We get up here in our heads. And when we get up here in our heads, we're in our thought bubbles. We're thinking about how others are perceiving us, how we're going to come across. Am I going to lose my train of thought? Am I going to sound good? Am I going to be able to answer questions people ask me? And when we're up here in our brain, we're not really being present with our listeners. We're not engaging. And we're not our best when we're up here in these thought bubbles. And it brings us further out of our bodies, which is where we need to be when we speak, in order to have good breathing habits that support our voice. Aside from how breathing is a necessary life function, and if we're not getting enough air, we get more anxious, Breathing also powers our voice the way gas powers a car's engine. But speaking and voice are overlaid on our respiratory system on top of the necessary physiological function. So our body is going to get the air before our voice gets the air. So the more nervous we get and the less optimal our breathing patterns are, the less air is left over for us to speak on that's moving through our vocal tract. And what's the other thing we all do when we start to get nervous or even excited in a positive way? We start to talk faster and we don't pause and we really get going, and then we get all tight and tense in our throat and we're trying to push out our voice like this and get to the end of the sentence. And you finally get to the end and you're almost gasping for air. So there's a lot of power that comes from being able to be present in your body and use the breathing patterns that we were meant to use, that we were born with, which is breathing from our diaphragm and pausing for breath before we run out of air, instead of pushing ourselves to get to the end of a thought or a sentence, and then finally rewarding ourselves with a breath of air. It's very hard to be present and engaging with our listeners when we can't even catch our breath. So we give ourselves a huge gift by learning to breathe from our diaphragms. And I do this, I teach this to my clients by having them put a hand on their upper chest and a hand on their diaphragm. And again, your diaphragm is a muscle shaped like this. If you feel where your rib cage ends, your diaphragm comes up just underneath that. And it's what expands and inverts down into a bowl-shaped muscle to allow your lungs to fully expand. And then it pops back up as we exhale to allow our lungs to fully expel all of the air, so that we're maximizing our use of the oxygen that we take into our lungs. So the deeper we can breathe from our diaphragms without moving up here, the better breath support we get for our voice, and the less often we'll have to pause to breathe in order to catch our breath and feel comfortable. However, pausing is not a bad thing. I teach people to pause anytime they would see a punctuation mark if their remarks were in writing. These pauses, these punctuation marks, are a natural juncture for us to pause and gather our thoughts, catch our breath, and let our listener process what we're saying. Because when we allow our listeners to process what we're saying, they actually stay with us and stay engaged better. Have you all ever been in an audience and you're listening to someone and they're talking so fast that people aren't really catching a lot of what they're saying, and they're on to the next point before you've even processed the last thing they said, and people are looking at each other like, what'd he say? What'd she say? Have you been there in that situation? Yeah. And the speakers just get going faster and faster the more nervous they get. But one of the best engagement strategies is to use a rate of speaking which allows your listeners to process what you're saying. And there's not one right size fits all for that. It's really according to the situation and what the thinking and psychological demands are of your listeners. If something is really dense information, if there's a lot of detail, if it's new and they haven't heard it before, they're going to need more pauses to process what you're saying because their brain is kind of hearing it and thinking about it for the first time. Anything that is heavy emotionally, difficult to process emotionally, takes a little more time for our listeners to process. And the more we allow our listeners to do that, they stay with us and they engage with us. And it makes us feel better as speakers when we're talking, and we can look in to the audience, whether it's an audience of one or two people or an audience of 200 people, because really any speaking is public speaking unless you're talking to yourself. So if you can look around and see that your listeners are with you because they're processing what you're saying, you're giving yourself a gift back as a speaker, because they're going to be able to engage with you, and you're going to be getting the head nods and the positive body language and the interaction that you want as a speaker, that encourages you to continue and makes you feel good and lifts you up when you speak. So the breathing pattern is really key, and focusing on breathing from your diaphragm and not from your upper chest, but also pausing to take enough breaths, because you can breathe properly, but if you're still trying to push yourself to the end of a sentence, instead of pausing when your body needs air, you're going to feel that. And you're going to get this tension and constriction in your throat as your throat tightens and your vocal cords are pushing to physically get to the end of what you're saying, because they're out of air. The best thing you can do for your voice is breathe properly, and breathe often enough. The other thing you can do is, and this goes along with the breathing, when I want to really get present and get in my body instead of in my head before I speak, aside from doing the breathing, and I actually warm up with breathing exercises. I don't just assume that I'm going to roll into a speaking engagement and be able to use my optimal breathing patterns, even though I practice them regularly. I do breathing warm-ups. I do voice warm-ups. It gets me into my body and feeling like I know I'm going to sound good when I speak. And these things just get you into your body, out of your head. And it helps you really set yourself up for a great speaking opportunity. And if you're breathing and you know you're breathing from your diaphragm, you're not going to get worn out as easily. One thing I tell people is sitting down to breathe and to speak is one of the hardest positions to breathe properly from, because we're at a 90-degree angle and your lungs are naturally a little more compressed. So if you feel that you're challenged by learning to breathe from your diaphragm and you're seeing a lot of upper chest movement like this, I would say try laying down on your back to practice this. That's the easiest position, because we all still breathe properly every night when we sleep. We don't have to train ourselves to do that. It's just automatic when our brains aren't working and we're relaxed that we do that. So if you can breathe properly from laying down, you can train yourself to do it then from standing and then from sitting. Though I will say I'm going to be getting a standing desk really soon, because it's challenging even for me to be speaking sitting all the time. When I go in front of an audience live in person, I'm never sitting to speak. All of a sudden in this virtual world, that's a little bit more challenging now, because we're all sitting at our desks. And I've actually rigged speaking situations for myself with my iPad on top of cartons, on top of a bar top in my basement, trying to stand when I speak. That's not what I'm doing today, but I know when I'm not doing that, I have to be extra mindful of my breathing. So if you're just learning to breathe from your diaphragm, I would suggest, if at all possible, to stand when you speak, and the energy will be so much better too. It's really a practice. I know those of you who speak, I know Marie speaks a lot, and I don't know how many of the rest of you speak a lot. The energy is such a huge component of engagement and feeling good about ourselves when we speak. Would
Well,
anyone like to ask questions?
Kathryn, we'll open it up for questions now, but I'll tell you what, you just killed me.
Thank you.
You know, for me, holding my gut is like on the top of the list as far as priorities are concerned. And now I'm discovering that the more I hold my gut to look good, the worse I look. So are you saying just let it all hang out?
Really, yes, because you have to choose between holding your belly in and breathing properly. And I promise you, the breathing will serve you much better whenever you're speaking. But not only that, it's the way our bodies were intended to breathe. So think about all the tension we hold, whether we're speaking or not, all day, every day. And how much of that could be really due to that we're holding ourselves in and we're not letting our bodies function the way we were intended to. You don't see babies holding in their guts. They're relaxed when they breathe.
You know, it's a funny thing. And Marie's nudging me. Marie goes, Sorrel, you're a dude. Let it all hang out. Let it go, right? So I'm letting it go. And Kathryn, you mentioned voice and breathing warm-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Can you demonstrate that just a tad for us?
I have a whole lot of them I do, and I'll do one for you, and let me know if you can't see me when I stand up. I'm going to do the one I do to activate the diaphragm muscle to really get it going before I speak and sort of wake up that muscle. And this is not how you should look when you breathe normally, but this is just an activation exercise. And this may not be the best shirt for this, but okay, can you see both my upper and lower hands?
Yep.
Okay, so what I do is that sort of really firm, and you can really feel that diaphragm muscle activate and get going. And I do that for a minute or so to get that diaphragm warmed up and going. And then I'm sort of in my body, I'm feeling where that muscle is, and I become very aware of it before I speak so that I know I'm using that muscle to speak on rather than. And by the way, this is a work in progress. I will still catch myself all the time when I'm on Zoom. These are the things you catch virtually that you don't catch on yourself when you're in person. Oh, I just took a breath from my chest. But it's a great reminder for me, okay, get back in my diaphragm breathing.
Got it. So I've been stuck in that vicious cycle. Hold my gut in to look good and suppress my breathing. My heart beats faster, my hands sweat, my brain sends signals to my body, and it forces me to look even better. So I hold my gut in tighter and the cycle gets wound up so tight, it's crazy. So enough of my revelation. Who has a question or comment? Thank you, Kathryn.
Thank you.
I really love this. I was just so present to what you were saying, Sorrel. I was like, the more I speak, the more I'm killing myself. I'm like dying every time I speak, trying to hold my breath, look good. This is you just changed my life, Kathryn. I don't know. You ruined my life.
Yeah, working on breathing is usually not what clients are the most excited about. It doesn't seem very sexy. They're like, no, I want to work on my voice. I want to get my pitch somewhere. But breathing is the foundation that every other speaking and voice shift is built upon. And if you have a shaky foundation with your breathing, you can't shift anything else very effectively because it's just like a house of cards.
Once you have that person or in that comfort zone of breathing, what is a suggestion you have to project the voice, to have the voice reach as far as one could do it?
Well, there are a couple things. First of all, when you are breathing properly and you're really optimizing your lung capacity and getting enough air in, you have more power behind your voice. Remember I said breath powers your voice the way gas powers a car's engine. The other thing, and this is something I teach clients, is to learn to control the breath, not just how they inhale from their diaphragm, but learning to use the little muscles in our respiratory and vocal tract to valve and control the flow of the air so it lasts longer. but also how we, and this is part of my vocal warm-ups, opening up your throat. Oh, big yawns to stretch out the muscles in your vocal tract, in your mouth, so that the vocal resonating chamber is open instead of tight. But again, just breathing the way we need to helps relax that vocal chamber, because the more we have to push to get our voice out because we don't have enough breath to power that voice, the tighter we get inside our throat. And what happens just in terms of physics with any chamber that resonates sound is that the tighter you make it, the more force is required to produce a certain amount of sound. So if you're tensing and constricting your throat to get the voice out because you don't have enough air, or because you didn't open up and relax these muscles before you speak, you have to push so much harder to get that voice out to the volume you want to be, which then creates strain and tension that can lead to vocal symptoms like hoarseness and voice loss eventually, depending on how long and how often you speak. But just breathing, letting yourself have that breath, and opening up your vocal chambers and opening your mouth more when you speak will allow that sound to come out and project with less force and more power. Many people speak kind of like this. They're talking with their mouths not fully open, and you really can't project your voice that way. But as soon as I open my mouth, it lets the sound out, and I don't have to work any harder to project it. Does that answer your question?
It's the beginning of my journey. Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We
Dave?
have three
Yeah, I have a
questions
question.
in the
You
audience.
give us a short demonstration of a breathing exercise. Could you give us a little demonstration of a vocal exercise that you practice before you speak?
So the yawning is the best one. And I know it doesn't sound like it has much voice to it, but you can sigh into it like this. Oh. And it gets you started in that relaxed place of your voice. Many of us, the more excited and nervous we get, our voice travels up higher. As I said, we get tenser, and all of a sudden our pitch is up here and we're all squeaky. But really doing that, oh, yawn and sigh into that tells you where your voice should be in terms of pitch, but also just how relaxed it should sound. And once you get that relaxed sound going, you can add the extra tension or animation that you need to create the energy you want with your voice. But starting with that, oh, and really open it. Don't try to yawn in a way that's delicate or closed off. Really get it opened up. And that is the best vocal exercise. If I have time to do nothing else and I'm in a rush and I'm about to get on a call and I want to open up my voice, that's what I do, Dave.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. We've got questions from the studio audience. Kathryn, first, Marie Frattoni. Go ahead, Marie.
Good morning.
Good
Hey,
morning.
Kathryn, great job. I wanted to make a comment. I mean, I've known Kathryn for several years, and I've enjoyed her trainings. One of the things that I wanted to kind of say for the group is that what Kathryn's demonstrating, you know, I've clients that are actors and performers, singers, and that's all of what they do to warm up. And so one of the things that I think is missing, I've been booking speakers for many, many years. One of the things that I see that's missing from some of the speakers who are great coaches and presenters who have got great content is their delivery. And the delivery is something that is often missing. And so if you have if you can really get coached in good delivery and then map on all of the physicality stuff that Kathryn is talking about, what happens is you end up connecting with your audience. You're not like what she's saying over here. And so, you know, I'm like, I'm bringing Kathryn into one of my coaching masterminds to have her speak with people that are actually learning to give their signature talks, because that's an element of it. It's not the full element, but boy, I mean, it's just really great. So really nice job this morning, Kathryn,
Thank
in a
you.
limited time.
Thank you for bringing such talent to the Daily Huddle, Marie.
My
Thank-
pleasure.
Yeah, and Kathryn, awesome job. Sheila, you've got a question. Go ahead.
I do. Thank you, Kathryn. That was really, really great this morning. Excellent.
Thanks.
Yeah, I wanted to know, well, really, my question is, do you have a website, and do you have any books or auditory things that you market where we could actually practice?
So I do have a website.
Mm-hmm.
It's confident communications with an S.net, not .com. And if you go to that website, the very first thing that pops up is my freebie, which is it'll send you an email with my vocal and speaking warm-ups.
Okay, thank
So
you.
I'm glad you asked that. And
Mhm.
I also have a Facebook business page, Confident Communications.
Mhm.
And you can send me a friend request at Kathryn David Woods if it helps you find it easier. And I do I have a big library of old videos in there. I haven't been doing them as much lately because I'm beginning to transition. I'm starting to do a lot on LinkedIn, but I haven't mastered the videos on LinkedIn yet. But one thing that's been popping up for me is that I need to get back to doing my videos. So once you sign up for the freebie, you'll be on my list. And then my plan is to get the videos going. And Marie and I were just having a text conversation about this the other week, that I need to start emailing my list with my videos for the speaking tips. And I'll be posting more of that on LinkedIn as well. And I'm Kathryn Woods on LinkedIn. So
All right.
I'd be pleased to connect with you. And hopefully a video course content is coming. I just haven't gotten it in the can yet.
Great, thank you. And I really want to acknowledge just watching you speak, you can get developed. So thank you, really outstanding.
Thank you, Sheila. It was a pleasure seeing you.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you. Andrea, I noticed you had your hand up, but you took it down. Was your question answered?
No, it's actually being cautious about the time, but again, I can actually ask the question right now to Kathryn. So good morning, everyone. Good morning, Kathryn. Thank you so much for what you did. My question is related. So today you spoke about breathing and the importance of breathing and the importance of pausing. And it triggered my brain about the work that you do when you are meditating. So my question is related to, is the breathing the mechanism for you to be present? And is present one of the tools that we need to use as you're speaking in public or you're speaking with somebody? Is it being present something related to breathing? That was my question.
Yes. So you're wanting to know about the relationship between presence and being in your body and breathing. And
Correct.
yes, that is a really important part of it, because one of the ways we can ground ourselves in our bodies to be present is to use our bodies the way they were meant to be used. So when we can breathe properly, it's just one way of grounding ourselves before we speak or before we do anything that we might be a little nervous or excited about. It's just one way to kind of bring ourselves down out of the mental into the physical. Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for asking.
Awesome. And Kathryn, we always want to engage the people who are watching on Facebook. And you have a question coming from Haiti. Dr. Edwin is asking this question. I struggle with consistency in a song, for example. Verse 1 may sound very different from verse 2. How can I find that consistency in delivery when performing?
I would say, first of all, a caveat, I'm not a singing coach and I am not a singer. However, I think that the more you can master the breathing, the more you'll be able to carry over some consistency, because if your breathing patterns and how you're breathing vary from one part of a song to another, then your overall delivery is going to shift as well. And without having seen him sing or having any other feedback, it's hard to be more specific than that because there could be other things going on. But my guess is it could have to do with whether or not he's really breathing the same way in each part of the song. So I would advise him to tune in physically to how he's feeling when he breathes. And then if he can go back and listen to recording of himself singing, having noted already in his head, well, this is where I felt good with my breathing, and this is where I felt not good, and then listen and see if there's a correlation there. My clients can get a lot of information. I always encourage them to record little bits of themselves speaking, because you'll get a lot of insight when you listen to yourself that you won't get when you're listening to yourself live. Because there's something called bone conduction, which is why we don't hear ourselves the way the rest of the world hears us. And it's why people don't like the sound of their voice on recording, because when we hear it on recording, we're hearing it through sound waves coming through the air into our ears. When we hear ourselves speak, we're hearing the bones in our skull vibrate, and it causes us to perceive our voice as being a lower pitch than what it really is. So if someone doesn't like their voice on recording, that's how it sounds all the time. But the good news is, by listening to it over and over, it's so easy to shift when you know what to do. But if you won't listen to it, it's hard to make that shift without accurate auditory feedback.
Perfect. Well, Kathryn, this was awesome. Imagine this. You get your last words now, and the words you're about to speak will transform speaking for everyone. What do you say to conclude the Daily Huddle today?
The most important thing is to stay in your breathing so that you can be present in your body with your listeners instead of up here in your head. We all tend to make a much better impression when we're not thinking about making a good impression.
Thank you, Kathryn. My gut's all the way out.
Wonderful.
Love all of you. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. And Kathryn, the Daily Huddle is your home. Feel free to come back anytime.
Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Happy
Bye.
4th.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Great job.
Thank
Great
you
job.
all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Hey, Dave, how's it going? Welcome.
Yeah, good. So yeah, this is great.